You sit there, paralyzed. The to-do list grows longer while your ability to act shrinks smaller. Call it laziness, procrastination, lack of willpower. You blame your character, your discipline, your fundamental worth as a human being. But stop. Look closer. Question deeper. This isn't laziness. This is hijacking. Your attention has been stolen, your focus fragmented, your natural rhythms disrupted by systems designed to capture and commodify your mental energy. What you call laziness is actually resistant, your brain's desperate attempt to protect itself from constant overstimulation. Every ping, every notification, every colorful interface is designed to hijack your reward system and keep you coming back for more. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're not lazy, you're hijacked. Recognize your struggle isn't moral failure, it's neurological warfare. Who are you in the silence between thoughts and the space between stimuli? Notice how everything is engineered to steal your attention. The infinite scroll that triggers dopamine hits. The notifications that fragment your focus into meaningless fragments. The apps designed by neuroscientists to be more addictive than slot machines. Your brain, evolved for survival in simple environments, is now bombarded with more stimuli in one day than your ancestors experienced in months. Why do you believe that you need to be constantly available, constantly updated, constantly connected? Especially the platforms that claim to connect you while actually isolating you from your own thoughts. Why do you assume that your inability to focus is a personal failing rather than a systemic attack? The idea that you need to stay informed when most information is designed to agitate, not educate. The notion that you're staying connected when you're actually disconnecting from yourself. The belief that you're multitasking when you're actually destroying your ability to think deeply. The entire economy depends on your inability to focus, your compulsion to consume, your perpetual state of mental agitation. The platforms profit from your distraction. The advertisers profit from your fragmentation. There's a moment when accommodation becomes self-destruction. There's a moment when saying yes to every notification becomes a way of saying no to your own mental sovereignty. Free yourself from the idea that you need to be constantly available. Free yourself from the guilt of not responding immediately. Free yourself from the pressure to consume every piece of content, to have an opinion on everything, to be perpetually stimulated. See, you're not failing to focus. Focus is being systematically destroyed. Why you need spaces where your mind can wander without being directed by algorithms. But this is programming, not nature. Your authentic self exists in the stillness, not in the chaos. It is the declaration that your attention is not for sale, that your consciousness is not a commodity, that your mental energy belongs to you. Perhaps it's present moment awareness instead of constant stimulation. When you remove the layers of algorithmic influence, what naturally draws your focus? Who are you when you're not consuming content? Who are you when you're not reacting to notifications? It can be the decision to leave your phone in another room. It can be the choice to create spaces where your mind can exist without external input. You create habits that serve your consciousness, not fragment it. You become a living example that sustained attention is still possible. For years, you've been conditioned to believe that constant stimulation is normal, that boredom is unbearable, that you need external input to feel alive. You just need to live with such focused intention that your presence becomes a question. Mark for those still lost in the digital maze. Integrate presence in a system that profits from your absence. You're not your scroll history. You're not your screen time. Reconstruct your leisure time to include activities that restore rather than deplete your mental energy. You are not the sum of your digital interactions or the content you consume. Not because you lecture about screen time, but because you embody focused presence. That their mental sovereignty is more sacred than any system that tries to hijack it. You've transformed from passive consumer of content to conscious curator of consciousness. But you know the truth. Your consciousness is your most precious resource, and no convenience is worth trading it away. You've become immune to chaos because you've learned to guard your attention, that the door was always as close as your power button. Reconstruct your relationship with boredom, recognizing it as the birthplace of creativity rather than a problem to be solved. You are a conscious being with natural rhythms, deep thoughts, and the capacity for sustained attention. Begin to disidentify from the stimulation. Begin to remember what your mind feels like when it's not being constantly hijacked. Why do you accept that checking your phone 150 times a day is normal? Question everything. especially the convenience, especially the free services. The narratives that govern your digital life were written by people who profit from your addiction. Stop accepting the unacceptable. Begin questioning the unquestionable. There is a moment when you need to stop adapting to the distraction and start demanding that your environment serve your consciousness. Confrontation isn't necessarily dramatic. It can be quiet, it can be private, it can be the simple act of turning off notifications, but it is confrontation. It is resistance. Prepare yourself. The systems don't like it when you stop feeding them your attention. Liberation begins when you realize that the prison was always portable, that the chains were made of pixels, not metal. Free yourself first from the myth of necessity. Free yourself from the need to justify your digital boundaries. Why you need quiet time. Why you need uninterrupted focus. Liberation is a practice, not a destination. It's a daily choice to prioritize your consciousness over convenience. Now that you've freed yourself from digital demands, what deserves your attention? Perhaps it's deep reading instead of shallow scrolling. Perhaps it's meaningful conversations instead of digital interactions. Perhaps it's creative projects instead of content consumption. Reorient your attention around these authentic interests. Not the interests that were programmed into you. The interests that emerge from your curious mind when it's given space to breathe. This reorientation isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the only path to a consciousness that is genuinely yours. Now you reconstruct. Not according to the patterns imposed by algorithms, but according to your own cognitive architecture. Reconstruct your morning routine without immediate digital input. Reconstruct your work environment to minimize distraction. Reconstruct your relationship with information, treating it as nutrition rather than entertainment. Reconstruction is an act of conscious design. It's the art of creating a mental environment that supports deep thinking, not just reactive processing. Now you integrate everything. Live intentionally in a world designed to steal your focus, but without surrendering your consciousness to it. Integrate moments of deep focus in a world of constant distraction. Integrate mindful consumption in a culture of endless content. You don't need to preach about digital wellness. You don't need to convince others to change. Integration is revolutionary because it's sustainable. It's proof that you can live consciously in an unconscious world. Now, you're no longer the same person who began this journey. Your transformation inevitably inspires transformation in others. Not because you judge their digital habits, but because you demonstrate what's possible. The systems will try to pull you back. They'll create new features, new notifications, new ways to fragment your attention. This is the deepest revolution, the transformation of a human being who decides that their attention is more valuable than their entertainment, that their focus is more important than their feeds. You're not lazy, you're hijacked. But hijacking can be resisted, and resistance begins with recognizing what's been stolen.